NutriCast. Welcome to Season 4 of Transforming 45. I'm your host, Lisa Boat, and this season we're stepping fully into our power. The heat, the hormones, the heartbreak, the healing. This is midlife, raw and redefined. Each episode, you'll hear stories of humans who are rewriting the rules, reclaiming their bodies, their desires, their voices. This is where we stop shrinking, start shining, and remember who the hell we are. Because midlife isn't a crisis, it's an awakening. Let's get transforming 45. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Transforming 45. This week, I am excited to welcome John Kippen. He is an entrepreneur, professional magician, speaker, resilience and empowerment coach, and published author. John was dealt a bad blow in 2002 when he was diagnosed with a large, benign brain tumor. Its removal, although successful, left him with permanent facial paralysis, which stopped his forward momentum, forcing him into hiding for more than 12 years. As John hit bottom, he rediscovered his childhood love for performing magic and storytelling. Now, filled with the passion and hope, he discovered that his facial difference had become his greatest superpower. This new mindset gave John the strength to live life with joy and become a sought-after resilience and empowerment coach who uses the lessons and methodologies he learned overcoming his adversity to inspire and assist his clients to get out of their own way and live their best lives. John, welcome to the show. I am so glad that you're here today.
Too.
All right. So, John, tell us, who are you and how did life introduce you to this version?
I live my life. I've always lived my life feeling that it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. And yes, that has bitten me in the arse, but it's also given me the greatest opportunities for experiences I would never have imagined that would have come if I didn't just say, hey, I'd like to do that. Let me go and do that. And not really care who says, you shouldn't do that or whatever. I live by my own lessons that I learned. And I think that combined with my creative thinking, my out-of-the-box thinking that came from my theatrical experience in high school and college, and then some semi-professional theatrical after I got out of college, my computer consulting company, which I still run for the last 35 years of out-of-the-box thinking. And then, of course, magic, which is all about turning the impossible into possible. That's my coaching program's kind of mantra is I have an I'm possible method because the word impossible, you break it down into two pieces, it's I'm possible. And that's all about a mindset. It's about dreaming again. I talk a lot about how as kids we grow up with whoever raised us, our parents, grandparents, whatever. And they have an adult friend come over and they say, hi, John, nice to meet you. Hey, I got a question. What do you want to be when you grow up? And as a little boy, I would say, wow, I think I want to be a policeman. No, I want to be an airplane pilot. No, wait. I want to be a rock star. And then I would run into my room, grab two rulers, and start banging on everything to make like it was a drum set, and got my air guitar out, singing. And I entered this land of make-believe. Then I could spend hours just imagining my life without any limitations, without my parents' limiting beliefs, without anything. And then you grow up and you get a job and you buy a house. You move out of your parents' domain. You start figuring out where you kind of fit. And you fall back to the beliefs that you got from your parents. And that kind of directs your momentum. And then you get to be my age, which is 60. And you look back and you go, wait, was that really what I wanted to do? And now it's not too late, but you realize how much time you lost because you started living someone else's dream instead of your dream.
Mm-hmm.
And so I work a lot with my clients on let's remove every restriction,
Mhm.
money, everything. Imagine you're multimillionaire and you have everything you could want. Close your eyes and make a design decision of where you want to be with your life, what you want to accomplish. I found that through my performing of magic, I would sit down at a table and people would come over and look at me, and I'm a overweight, balding guy with a screwed up face. And they would look at me and they're like, huh, I wonder why his face is paralyzed. Did he have a stroke? Did he have Bell's palsy? But, they know they're in for some close up magic. So they sit there kind of reserved. And then I start my show and I say, welcome. A little bit about myself. My name is John. I'm doing magic all my life. But in 2002, I had a brain tumor. And then when they yanked it out of my head, they traumatized my facial nerve. But something happened to me on that operating room table. Now, I'm not sure what it was because I was unconscious. All I know is I recovered. I realized I had acquired some new skills, some new superpowers. And then I pause and I wait for the audience to get on the edge of the chair, wondering what possible benefits I could have gotten from having brain surgery. And I look to my right and my left, and I lean in. And with a loud whisper, I say, guys, I am able to visualize people's thoughts. And then I do some mental magic or mentalism. And what that does is two things. Number one, that answers the question that they don't want to ask because they don't want to be rude, but that is preoccupying their mind and keeping them from enjoying the magic. Number two, it shares something personal about me, and people react kindly to that. They're like, wow, he's opened up his heart. He's opened up his life experiences to me. He's sharing something uber personal. Maybe there's something to learn here. Maybe I'm going to really pay attention. And through that connection that creates, I've established some of the greatest relationships of my life, lifelong lasting relationships. Many people who are going through physical challenges, cancer or whatever, find comfort in the strength that I exude when I'm performing. And they share their story with me because I give them permission to do that. And as a coach, I can then kind of guide them to understanding what's truly important and to value what they can still contribute, even though they're going through cancer treatments or have diagnosed with MS or whatever. The journey is the important part, not the destination.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for sharing that. Like you said, when we open up and share our own stories, we see each other, right? We see ourselves in your story. My story isn't the same, but there certainly are intersections and where I see myself in your story and where you see yourself in my story. And there's a couple of themes that I'm really interested in following that you shared in that story. And that is imagination, whose dream and am I really living, and connection. And so I'm going to start with the one of whose dream am I really living? Because at midlife, that is a real theme again, which starts to surface in people's lives for all kinds of reasons. Our lives are often shifting and changing in many different ways at this stage. And so it does open up some space to really start thinking about whose dream am I really living? You talked about we live under our parents' expectations and beliefs. And when we move out onto our own, often we fall into those patterns. And those patterns start to surface even more strongly, I think, at this stage of life. And so, how do you support people to sort out what really is my core value and what is my dream? And how do I realize that it is not too late, that I absolutely can create this life that is truly my dream at this stage?
I reversed engineered. how I overcame my adversity. I'm a critical problem solver. So in the process of writing my book, Playing the Hand You're Dealt, and if you guys listen to the whole episode, I'll be sharing a link. You can download it for you, PDF version of it. I discovered that it's within all our powers to learn how to dream again. And there's some simple exercises that you can do, and I do them multiple times a week, just before I go to bed. I close my mind and I clear my thoughts of whatever happened today and whatever is happening tomorrow. And I just try to be present. I literally clear my mind and let whatever thoughts come to my mind influence kind of what I'm thinking, who I am, where I want to be, where I'm happy in my life, where I'm unhappy in my life. It's all about filling your life with as many joyful moments as possible. When people say, John, what's your meaning of life? And my meaning of life is to fill as many moments with joyful experiences. Because no matter what your religious beliefs are, whether or not you believe there is a heaven or a hell, it's really up to you to decide what you want to be, how you want to show up. And the key is showing up as your authentic self. And sometimes figuring out who that authentic self is requires tiptoeing out of your comfort zone. And it only requires a tiptoe. It doesn't require a leap. And so many people are feared of jumping out of their comfort zone. And so many other coaches talk about stepping or jumping. No, you can tiptoe and take one little thing at a time. And if you feel uncomfortable, you can tiptoe back. But when you now have a new piece of information that is part of the grand puzzle of who you are and what you want to contribute to your life, your friends and family's lives, and to the world. I'm not a political being, but, living in the USA, I am so defeated by the decisiveness of the political system in the United States. And all we can do as human beings, as members of this society, is vote. That's our power, is to vote and then live with the consequences of who we choose to lead our country.
I was going to say vote and. It gets back to the theme also that I wanted to talk about of connection.
Mhm.
And when you were talking about sharing your story and being open and how that opens up something in someone else. And we have lost a lot of that capacity, that we are constantly living behind walls of protection because we are afraid. We could spend episodes talking about what's gotten us to this point, but we live behind these walls of fear and this need to constantly protect ourselves. And that protectionism turns inward, so we're only thinking about our own experience instead of opening up and looking outward and looking at where can I find connection. And so that's why I said vote. And I think we have to be, and I'm speaking as a Canadian, so from a slightly different perspective, but we have very similar issues happening in our own country, right? We see these waves of division filtering throughout the globe at this point in time. So I think it is so important that we also make an effort to do this work of what you are doing, sharing your story and making intentional connections with other people. Because when they see themselves in you, they might have seen someone that they thought they were going to just disagree with and push against. But when we're able to sow that seed and actually see some humanity in each other, we can start to connect. And I'm wondering if you can share some of your experience around that connection with people when you do share your story.
It's transforming. I'll give you an example. I used to perform at a place called the Magic Castle, which is a private club in Hollywood. And I would be dressed in a suit and tie and sit behind a table. And I would attract people to come and enjoy some magic. And there'd be women who were dressed to the nines because it was a chance for them to feel good about themselves in their own skin, right? And they would sit around the table and they would look at this guy, again, overweight with a paralyzed face. And they're like, huh, I don't know if I trust this guy. I don't know what his ulterior motives are. I don't know if he's going to be inappropriate. I don't know if he's going to have a dark sense of humor. So I'm going to sit here, but I'm going to be protected. And so I watch the women sit at the table in their body language. You know, they have their legs crossed and their arms crossed across their chest. And they're leaning back. And they have a grin on their face, but it's certainly not a. And then I start performing. And I share my story about how I hid from cameras and mirrors for 12 years because I didn't feel comfortable laying in after my brain tumor and resulting facial. And then I start performing and making the magic about what they do, about who they are, about their choices. And all of a sudden, I see their language, their body language change. And first, you see their arms drop by their side. And then they uncross their legs and plant them firmly on the ground. And then they lean in. And then they start smiling. And these smiles are contagious. And their eyes start to dance. And at that point, I know that I've shared my humanity and my care for who they are as human beings. I've learned how to memorize their names, at least for the 30 or 40 minutes I'm with them. And everybody loves to hear their own name, period. The key to making a relationship and a friend is don't forget their name. So I'm sitting there, and as I end my performance, I cannot count the number of times these women who initially were very reserved, you know, they put this wall up that women are forced to in today's society because they don't know what this guy is going to do. They don't know if I'm going to attack them or be inappropriate or whatever. So it's an automatic reflex now. It's not something they even think about. But through this 40-minute show, I see those walls drop. And at the end of the performance, they asked permission to hug me. And for a woman, hugging someone is the ultimate sign of affection. You know, it's like, I'm going to give up my body to you and I'm going to hold you and ask you to hold me. You know, and that filled my heart so much as a man, knowing that I can touch a woman so profoundly by just being honest and sharing my skills as a magician and my story. And as that creative problem solver in me, I reached out to a couple of these women that said, you know, not tonight, but can I have your phone number and reach out to you and talk about what was going through your mind? What was going through your heart when all of a sudden you decided you wanted to give me a hug? And a couple of women said, sure. So I got on the phone with them. And I asked, I said, you know, you changed. You expressed your femininity, your love. What What caused you to do that? And they didn't really immediately have an answer.
Mhm.
And I said, okay, I'm going to put out an hypothesis. Did I give you permission to be vulnerable and feminine again? And they all started crying because they realized that's what it was. That in today's society, women don't get the opportunity to be themselves and to give of their heart and their femininity to people. And boy, if that's not a superpower, I don't know what a superpower is. And I also do that through my coaching and my speaking and just my day-to-day interactions with people, you know?
Mhm.
It's about the connection. It's about the relationship. On our deathbed, we don't think about the money. We don't think about the possessions. We think about the relationships we fostered, good or bad. We think about the bridges that we burned and the fact that we have not had the opportunity to right those wrongs. None of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. And sometimes we don't even know it. We say some offhand comment that's taken out of context. And all of a sudden they're like, oh no, I don't want to be friends with that guy. He doesn't like this, or he has this opinion that's so against what I believe. It's such a shame to ruin a perfectly prosperous relationship by a simple misunderstanding.
Mhm.
So, it's just about caring for others above yourself.
Well, this is how we humanize each other again. So we are in this great process, and I mean great as in large scale, not great as in good, of dehumanizing each other so that we can live in this space of cruelty. And showing up to each other heart to heart is how we reverse that process. I think sometimes we feel overwhelmed by the enormity of this task. But it is as simple and as challenging as coming face to face with someone who you disagree with and listening and recognizing their humanity. And when we're able to see each other's humanity, that's how we again humanize and come to that realization that as humans, it is not our innate will to be hurtful and harmful.
No. I tell a story last 2 Thanksgivings ago when Donald Trump was going to be elected president. I used to go with my parents when I was a kid to a Thanksgiving celebration at a uncle's house. Look forward to seeing the family once a year and going and celebrating Thanksgiving and eating all the turkey and just playing games with the other kids. I always looked at, and even after my parent passed, I continued that tradition. I would go, and I was the guy who would bring the pumpkin and the pies. That was my job. And I love those moments. I got to spend time with people I hadn't seen and do a little magic here and there and just have a great time. And 2 Thanksgivings ago, I got an email from my uncle saying, we've decided to cancel Thanksgiving. Our family is so divided that we are fearful that we're going to have we're going to have screaming matches over the Thanksgiving Day dinner. I mean,
Mhm.
what what does that mean for our society? Another thing that happened this week that I've been really struggling with is this whole baseball Phillies Karen issue.
I am unaware.
Okay, so at a Phillies game, there was a home run ball into the bleachers. And this father, with his son on his birthday, ran over to this ball that was just rolling around on the ground, grabbed the ball, and presented his son as a birthday gift. And this woman ran over to him and started screaming at him, "How dare you take my ball? It was closer to me." And she was so aggressive that the father actually took the ball out of his son's glove and gave it to this woman so that she would just leave. And the look on his son's face, "Dad, you just took my birthday gift away and gave it to this lunatic. Why? And then this woman got booed and got escorted out of the ballpark. And since has been banned from attending any baseball game in the future. And now there are people on Facebook and on YouTube making memes of her. Cruel things. Yeah, she was insensitive. She made a mistake. But the internet is not letting go. They are making an example of her and ruining her life. She lost her job as an educator. She lost friends. She lost relationship with families over a one simple selfish. And I'm struggling with that. We all make mistakes.
Yeah. Absolutely. And this is where reparative justice is so important. But this stew that we currently live in don't allow for that, right? I often wonder when someone is in that state where they're making this choice of like, I'm going to go over there and I'm going to get that ball because it was closer to me. I often wonder what would happen if after that person has made the choice and their nervous system has settled, because there are some physical realities that we have to attend to about how and when we talk to somebody. But if saying to her, did that make you feel better? Right. And just giving that time for reflective question of that action, did that actually make you feel better? The likely response is probably going to be no, it did not. And certainly the consequences that have followed have been outsized to what the experience was. But it goes back to that theme of humanity and recognizing something was happening within her. Did she make the right choice? No, she did not. But there was something happening within her that she was reacting to.
Yeah.
And so bringing
None
those.
of us know what it is.
Absolutely
We
not.
don't know her baggage. We don't know her history. We
That's
don't
right.
know if she had a bad relationship with an ex, a parent. We don't know what made her that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so having the space to actually debrief about it in a way that allows each side to learn is really, really important. And that is what we are missing right now is this ability to learn from each other. Because if you were able to have a debrief about it for that kid, it also is an incredible learning experience about how to respond to somebody who's clearly in crisis.
Yeah.
And the dad did the most compassionate thing he could in that moment to de-escalate everything. And what an incredible model that was for that child.
Yeah.
And if we're able to talk about those things from these places of love and compassion and empathy, it can really change. So big question, but how do we get back to that point where we are able to learn from one another instead of constantly being in judgment of one another? Can you solve that problem for us today,
Was
please,
not
John? That would
prepared
be
for that
great.
question, my friend. Go away, Jose. Reflecting on your act, I think we all make choices that serve us and don't serve us. And many of those choices are made in an instant. They're not anything that we sit there. I don't think that woman sat there thinking about, should I go over and no, she just reacted. And unfortunately, she took the low road and put out a statement that basically said, well, if I had the opportunity, I'd do it again because it was really my ball and the kid's a whiny brat and he should learn how to grow up.
Yeah, she
Yeah,
did not do herself any favors with that
yeah.
statement.
And his attorney should be disbarred, who let that letter actually go to the press.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was just bad advice.
Mhm.
But, it's just a sign of the times. It's just a sign that we as a population, you know, we live in a society in the United States and in Canada. We are so blessed with opportunities. We can make the decision to make our lives anything we want them to be. It may not be an easy journey, but most of us have money in the bank. We have a car. We have, all of these luxuries that we take for granted. You need to take stock in what you actually have and what others don't, and be willing to be generous. God, I think our society has lost the ability to truly be generous, to see someone at a 7-Eleven or whatever, a local thing, begging for food, and you look at what they're wearing, and you look at their shoes, and their shoes are tattered, and they're asking for $1 to get a hot dog so they can eat that day. Why is that dollar? What is that dollar going to mean to us? That dollar is much more appreciated by that person.
Mhm.
And yeah, there are people who are taking advantage of us, and so be it. They have to live with themselves.
Yeah. And there is also a need they have that isn't being met. And so this brings me to the other theme of imagination, right? And imagining what is it that we really want for ourselves, for our communities in this time, and giving ourselves the space to imagine. And I'm wondering how your passion and ability for magic opens that up for people.
God, I hope it does. Again, when I imagine what I would like my life to look like, it really is me imagining how I can help others, how I can make a difference in other people's lives. Because in return, we get tenfold in return than whatever gesture we did. You know, there are some things that we have the power because of our job or our position or our knowledge or our connection to make someone else's dream come true. And it's no skin off our back. It's a phone call. It's a calling a favor in the favor bank. But to that person who needs that, it's a miracle. It's a miracle of what you can do to help someone else who is struggling. And you have the power to grant them that wish like that. That is how we need to support each other. You know, I spend a lot of time on social media. I do. And I doom scroll. And I just go post to post to post and try to silence the ads. And all of a sudden I'll run across a post from a friend and it's out of their character. You know, it's usually not a video, it's just a sentence on their wall. And I stop and I think, and I read that a couple times myself. And I realize that that's a cry for help. That's their last resort of not knowing where to turn, that they're in crisis. And so many times you see something like that and you chalk it up to, they're having a bad day. And you continue scrolling. I don't. I stop. I call that person. I don't text them. I don't email them. I call that person and say, "Hey, Joe, I was on Facebook. I saw that post. Are you okay? What can I do for you?" That connection that you make by being selfless, by being present in someone's life, by noticing their cry for help, even though it may not be clear that they would. You have to be willing to reach out and risk the loss of a friendship because you are potentially imposing in on their lives and butting in where your nose doesn't belong. You have to be willing to say, okay, I did my best and they took it the wrong way, and so be it. But for every one time that happens, there are 100 times where you say the right thing at the right time for someone and give them hope that they can get out of whatever mess they're in. And just being an ear to listen to them without judgment is my biggest gift that I can give to people I know and even people I don't know. I'm a member of a whole bunch of Facebook groups who are all surrounded with people who are going through facial paralysis and acoustic neuroma specifically. And they're scared because they're about to go in for a surgery that they can't afford. They don't know how they're going to come out because doctors have never gone through the procedure themselves. So they don't know how long it's going to take before they can drive again or before, they don't know what kind of physical defects they're going to have after they get done the surgery. They don't know if they're going to come out alive. They don't know how long the surgery is going to be. They don't know how their life is going to be different, how going through life being single-sided death is going to affect their lives. They have a million questions that the medical professionals, because they didn't go through it themselves, have no way of answering them. And I spend hours a week reaching out to people and saying, look, here's my number. Here's my WhatsApp, whatever. Call me. Let's chat about it. Let me walk you down off the springboard. And let's just be honest with each other. Let me say which fears are worth worrying about and which ones you have nothing you can do about it.
And it is that approaching people from that space of compassion, empathy, and bringing also a little bit of joy, which can
A lot of
really, yes, yes, thank you. A lot of joy. You're right. And that's how we can shift how we approach each other in those ways because joy is so essential. So, John, thank you so much for sharing all of your experience and your wisdom with us today.
one last comment before we go.
Yes, please.
Happiness and joy is a choice. It's a mindset. You can't learn how to love others. You truly learn how to love yourself. And that can take years. And it took me 12 years to learn how to love myself again. But the minute I realized that my facial paralysis didn't define me and that me being overweight doesn't define me, it was a magical portal to a new world of hope and opportunity to help others. And that is the greatest gift you could receive from just being present in other people's lives.
Absolutely. That's a beautiful place to wrap this up. Thank you so much. John's contact information will be in the show notes. So if you feel like you resonated with this conversation today, make sure you check out all of the ways that you can connect with John. And thank you so much for being here with us.
And by the way, a link to get that free copy of my PDF of my book, johnkippen.com/free gift. It's a form and it'll ask your name and contact info. And then it will send you an email with a link with a password. And although the password is in the email, many people don't notice it. The password's simple. It's my name, all one word, John Kippen. And I hope you really enjoy reading the book.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
This has been an amazing time, Lisa. Thank you so much.
Thank you for hanging out with me on Transforming 45. If you laughed, nodded, or had an oh wow moment, hit follow and share it with your favorite midlife human. Find me on Instagram at @lboat and keep those transformations coming.
Electric acid.